We're just.
Not ready to let this go.
My bad. Take two.
Hey, speaking of that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. We're just here to talk a little bit about our steady decrease in auto thefts this year that has sat roughly around that 42% mark throughout this year. So I'll hand it over to Meriton Keller to kick us off.
Well, appreciate everyone coming out today to talk about auto theft. We want to really touch on, I think, first at a high level, that it was literally almost 7 years ago, 8 years ago to the day, when there was an op-ed after I was first elected that said, "Congratulations, you've won. Now you're number one in auto theft in the country. What are you going to do about it?" Well, what we're sharing with you today is how far we have come from that point. This is a major milestone. And first and foremost, this marks literally a 42% decrease year to date compared to 2024. But that is on the back of what we have been doing in past years. And so if we think about the amount of cars that were stolen in this city, it was about 10,000 when we came in. Think about whether it's a parking lot at a sports stadium or it's just your neighborhood, what 10,000 cars means. That is a huge number. And as I mentioned before, it was worst in the country. Now we're down to under 4,000. So the rankings will come out later. We know our last ranking, I think we were had dropped down to number 8. We think we'll be out of the top 10 this year. But the point is there are 6,000 fewer cars stolen than when we came in each year. And so the most significant drop has been this year. And we believe we know why that is happening. It is the same thing that I have been mentioning before each one of the press conferences this week. Not even this week, sorry, this year. Because it is the combination of technology. When you combine, and we're going to demonstrate all this, the license plate readers and the cameras, and then you also have federal partnerships, and we also help support prosecution. So we created a brand new unit, the SHIELD unit, to literally help our DA, this was back several years ago, but now we see the fruits of it, have better cases for all things, but especially auto theft. And we also have, of course, officers doing amazing work each and every day. And we have proactive policing, which we added back in under Chief Medina's leadership. These things combined are what is driving these results. And the numbers represent literally stolen property that is also returned and criminals that are taken off the street. That's the two goals. You get your car back and that person's also in jail. That's what APD is now effectively doing all over our city. So we're going to go through the details on this. And would just remind folks that, we've all seen the video of bait cars and things like this. We understand that auto theft is typically a symptom of other things, whether it is gang activity or whether it is a currency for fentanyl and drug trafficking. But nonetheless, the auto is so critical to the individual in our city, in a Western city. Your car, for whether we like it or not, is part of almost existing in a Western city in America in this day and age. And so that's why it is especially hurtful to those who lose their auto, and why it's so important that we focused on this. So with more on this, I'll hand it over to the chief.
I'm going to kind of walk us back down a little history lesson here and how we got to this place with auto theft. In 2009, Harold Medina was a lieutenant on the West Side Graveyard. A new administration came in. Their number one goal was property crimes. They hand-tapped one lieutenant to fight their number one issue. That was Harold Medina. I know now there are members of that administration who talk smack about the chief, and the chief does take it personal. because myself and Deputy Chief Vega lowered auto theft in 2010 and 11 to the lowest level they had been in years. How did we do this? With technology. Back then we expanded the license plate reader program. We brought in and expanded the bait car program, and we were very proactive in taking people to jail. The RTCC was built, the starting blocks, and we really worked on getting good, strong prosecution and combining cases together. 2011, I get promoted to the rank of commander. I go over tactical. And in 2014, as auto theft started to rise and property crime started to rise, for a second time that administration hand-tapped a commander to go back to property crimes to lower rates. Rates started to go down and I retired in 2014, October. 2017, I returned back to the Albuquerque Police Department, and the very first thing Mayor Keller told me was, you are in charge of making sure crime is reduced. Yes, we were under a consent decree, and he told me, Deputy Chief Garcia and his team will take on the battle of the consent decree. I need you to get us out of being number one. So I quickly discovered two things. The bait car program, which had been so successful, had dwindled to nothing, and we had to reestablish the bait car program. I went to the then CAO, got the funding, and we immediately started to rebuild the bait car program. Number two, Raul Torres took me across the street to the DA's office, and he showed me a room with 800 or 900 cases that had been dismissed because of the lack of discovery, because APD wasn't getting packets together for the DA's office. So I quickly came back, generated another memo, and we built the SHIELD program, which the LFC said helped to double our indictment rate. I sat in this room sometime around January of 18, and we announced the results from our very first citywide auto theft operation, which I have to remember, if I remember correctly, within the first hour we had 3 in custody in auto thefts. One of them, all the media did a story about one of the Brasher brothers who had arrested in 2011 and 12 and had gone to prison for a length of time and came back. Since that time, we were number 1 in the country for auto theft. We've fallen to number 8, and this year alone, we have a 42% reduction. And it is a combination of things. It is a combination of license plate readers are now in every single marked unit. The first week that those license plate readers were in existence, they led us to a homicide offender as officers drove to a homicide scene, and the LPR picked up a license plate that was later determined to be the offender vehicle in a homicide. We could all research this. It happened back when earlier this year off in the southeast. 197 of the LPR hits this year that flagged a stolen vehicle. 197 arrests from the ALPR. The expansion of that program has been invaluable. Automated license plate readers are now in more intersections and in every marked unit, something that they had never been. And that is one of the biggest reasons why our officers are able to find so many stolen cars and are taking more and more people to jail. I'm going to bring Deputy Chief Vega up here. He's going to talk a little bit about all the other things we're doing. But remember, it's a combination. License plate readers, strong prosecution, technology. We had cars run from us nonstop. Deputy Chief Vega will talk about what we brought in to stop that, how we stopped those vehicles from fleeing throughout the city, and how we expanded the number of detectives in this unit. When I came back, Deputy Chief Brown was actually the sergeant of auto theft, and I think he was down to 4 detectives. And we'll talk about how, through great management and great focus on the biggest problem our community was seeing, we gave the resources to the unit, which successfully led us to get the reductions we have now. George?
Thank you, Chief.
My name is Deputy Chief George Vega. I'm with the Investigations Bureau for the Albuquerque Police Department. One thing that I really want to touch on is our detectives and the hard work that they've been putting in. I know Chief talked about the reduction that we're seeing. I think it's very important to make sure that we recognize the hard work and the dedication that these officers and detectives and the leadership that's there. We have 2 sergeants that are there. Currently, we have 7 full-time officers. We have 2 sergeants that are in the position, and we have 12 collateral officers. I think it's important for us to touch on the collateral positions. Those collateral positions come from other parts of the department. They could be in field services. And one thing that we've really been working on here in the department, when we talk about technology and making sure that we have our technology working, our detectives are working, we're also breaking down silos within the police department. And that's what these collateral officers are doing. When we have collateral officers that are coming from the field, they're signing up to work these missions with our auto theft team, which is bolstering our detectives and the amount of manpower that we have there doing proactive police work. Because that's what I really want to focus on this unit here. This is a very proactive team that goes out there to look at these high-level chop shops and organized rings that we have. And when you look at the work that they've been doing in 2024, they had 182 arrests. In 2025, we've already seen a 22% increase, and they're at 227 arrests. And when I look at that, that's a combination of breaking down silos, adding technology, and giving them the tools and the equipment that they need, and bringing in those collateral officers to work together to get to these arrests. I know Chief Medina covered this a little bit. He and I worked together to bring the bait card program back. Currently, we've had 42 bait car activations year to date and 45 arrests for the bait cars. When you look at the bait cars and the success that we've had with them, there's been many arrests that we've made where these cars have led us back to chop shops, to different repeat offenders that we've been able to see stealing these bait cars. One of the things that I really want to point out about the technology in these bait cars that really helps the detectives identify who's in the car. They can see a live feed into the car to see who's in the car, if they're armed, description of these individuals. That's the technology that we're tapping into to help take these individuals into custody safely. This tool that we've brought in came in about a couple years ago. It's called the Grappler. What this does, one thing that we have noticed, and it's across the country, taking folks in these offenders into custody safely and quickly at a time of our choosing keeps the community safe. And this is what this tool does. This tool is deployed. We've had 42 successful deployments. It comes in and it's able to wrap around one of the tires of the vehicle and brings the vehicle to a stop, like I said, safely and at a point of our choosing. And we have five drones that are assigned to the unit right now. The way that we're using drones is for surveillance. We're looking at large-scale chop shops. They're able to come in, and if we have anybody that flees from any of our stolen vehicles, the drone's able to come in and keep track of where these individuals are going. So that's just a look at some of the technology that we have and that we're working on. I'm going to bring Commander Sandoval up so he can talk about some of the arrests that we've had utilizing this technology.
Thank you, DC. My name is Albert Sandoval. I'm currently over the Investigative Services Division, which houses auto theft. I just want to talk about this case involving James Hamlin. He's a prolific auto theft offender. He's known to the department and the city for property crime offenses as well as violent crimes, to include felon in possession of firearms in the past. Auto theft detectives knew who he was based on a past case where he was actually caught in a bait car. On November 20th, auto theft detectives were able to identify him in a stolen vehicle and follow him to a house in the Northwest Area Command. Once they were able to put him inside the residence, with assistance from tactical personnel, they did a surround and call out and took the individual safely into custody. The result of the search warrant, you can see 6 stolen cars recovered from that residence, 11 firearms recovered. Charges were felon in possession of firearm, receiving transferring of a stolen motor vehicle, receiving transferring of a stolen firearm, and also receiving transferring stolen property, and trafficking controlled substances. This is just one of the many cases that the auto theft unit comes into contact with, as well as the chop shops. And it kind of demonstrates what's been working for the department. So as Chief Medina and DC Vega stated, bait cars, ALPRs, the grappler, and drones were all kind of utilized on similar cases. When we talk about our federal partnerships, that last case, ATF is going to be adopting that case for federal prosecution for felon in possession of a firearm. And then the Office of the Superintendent of Insurance is also going to be working closely with auto theft to adopt charges and take that case as well. OSI agents work regularly with auto theft. They're out there during their operations, and they've been a big help whenever they adopt a case to bring charges, so we can put some of these repeat offenders behind jail and keep them behind jail to drive the numbers down for the city.
We can open it up for questions now. Go ahead.
When did the bait card program, I know it didn't officially end, but when did it kind of peter off and when did it start back up again?
You know, in 2010-ish timeframe, myself and Deputy Chief Vega went to Fort Worth, Texas. And we wired our first bait car outside of what they had. Prior to that, they had one bait car that they would actually just start in a detective's driveway and hope it would get stolen. We went from that one bait car then to 2011 when we brought in 18. And somewhere between 2014 when I left and 2017 when I returned, because of technology issues we were told, they actually went down to 0 bait cars. And we immediately in 2018 brought back the bait car program. And we've had to update it. It needs a continuous update because each time we go to a new level of technology, especially going from 3G to 4G to 5G, each time we've had to upgrade the bait car system.
And then there was a 3-person difference in the bait car arrest versus the activation rate. Can you just explain what that difference is?
That may be that there was more than one person inside of the bait car when the bait car was stolen, and they were able to show that the person had knowledge and charge them with receiving or transferring.
I've got a question, Chief.
Yes.
I know a couple of years back you guys kind of stopped responding to as many auto theft calls just to kind of make the response time go up. You're taking a lot of calls over the phone. Did that have any effect on the numbers?
You know what? No. There's the one thing I've learned, and there's always the argument. The biggest argument I always hear is people don't report. And there's 2 things that I always say there are reported. Nobody does not report their car stolen. The vast majority, 99%, are going to report their car stolen because they want their car back. And you can't hide a body. Homicide is another one of those crimes. And when we went to the phone, it was a simple concept of managing the department better. Yes, people were upset because they didn't have an officer, but I said it back then and I'll say it again. The one place I wasn't going to send an officer for a stolen car was where I 100% knew the car was not at. And we know the car was not at the home. And we had officers for an hour, hour and a half having to drive to different parts of the city, taking a call for service, sitting down with an individual, taking a report, and then entering it when we could have done it since back then over the phone. And it's those kind of innovations and changes to the department that have helped us become more efficient. And when I took over as chief in 2020, I used to talk, if we were a car back then, we probably got like 5 miles per gallon with everything that we were doing. That was a waste of time. And now I'm happy to say that with all the changes we've made with civilianization, technology, I'll bet you our car is up to 50 miles a gallon. We've really increased. And when you look at how many arrests we have and record numbers of arrests, and we still have the ability to go out and be proactive and find more people and deal with other issues, it's just a testament of how we're managing our resources a whole lot better. Yes?
On the topic of the ALPRs, APD keeps data from their ALPRs for a year. There's some citizens that believe that could be an invasion of privacy. Why do you all feel it's necessary to keep that data for that full year when that is far longer than the majority of departments across the country?
We're very fortunate. Under the previous administration, I think they had lost that ability and it was reduced to 14 days. We successfully went to City Council. That 1 year is set by City Council by ordinance, and we were able to get a 1 year retention period. And we fought hard for that retention period because we don't always know where a criminal investigation is going to take us. And we have homicide investigations, for example, that sometimes it may take us a couple weeks to figure out that a certain vehicle is a suspect in the crime, and we want to be able to go back and review that video to see if that vehicle went through an LPR station at some point in time. And a lot of times that information may not come out within the first 14 days.
Could you also just confirm or share what other departments, agencies, and organizations the data within the ALPR network you all use is shared with?
I believe ours is only shared within us and state police. and state police, but we'll verify that exactly and I'll get you an answer. I wish JJ was here. JJ is the one that has that exact answer.
Any other questions?
On a similar vein, how many ALPRs are there, and then what's the methodology when choosing the locations of those?
You know, they've done studies to see where is the best place, and obviously one of the initial places that we placed LPRs throughout the city was on Central Boulevard, and as we all know, that's where we continue to have our biggest challenges. So Central was one of the first places that this administration put LPRs on, but the number of LPRs is probably well above 1,000. I could get a number for you later, because one of the things we did in the last upgrade of our OBRDs, our cameras, is we moved to dash cams in our cars, but that dash cam has a built-in LPR. And it is one of those LPRs that the first week of their existence solved a homicide case for us.
Something else that people have been concerned about, especially residents here, is with the ALPRs in states like California and Texas, ICE has been able to gain access to ALPRs. Can you confirm or anything?
No,
if you
ICE
know if
doesn't
ICE
have
is gaining
access. No, they won't have access to our ALPR system.
And can you expand a little bit on this federal partnerships, who we're in collaboration with, and how long these partnerships are expected to last?
You know, we've had a really strong partnerships, and you know, the biggest example is, it's not a great example for reflection on the Albuquerque Police Department, but I think when you look back at federal partnerships and the fact that everybody in this room has done a story on the DWI corruption scandal, who was the one agency that was involved in that and had communications on an ongoing basis with the feds? Was APD. Because we had a strong relationship with the FBI. There was a bond of trust, and we worked well and communicated well together. If you look at ATF, the former director before the new administration, time and time again at federal conferences used Albuquerque as an example of the success of the NIBIN program. And the two cases they always pointed at was the Muslim homicides and the political shootings. And if you look, we had our command center at FBI for the Muslim shootings. ATF took a trailer to the scene of the warrant on the Muslim shootings, and they were making phone calls to get an analyst in to Huntsville, Alabama, I think it was, to run that shell casing immediately for us, because we were at the 11th hour to let the individual have to go or to be able to charge him. It is those strong partnerships that have enabled us to get evidence back that fast. We had the ATF van here, so I think partnerships hit different levels at different times, but we've been very successful in working our federal partnerships and communicating. Even the ICE issue, we've said it before, we've done press conferences on it, that I have the ability to call and say, hey, were you guys in this area? Can I let the citizens feel better that it was actually real agents there and they wasn't people who were pretending to be? So we've had some of the strongest relationships with our federal partners, and we intend to keep the lines of communication open and maintain our relationships with them.
And Deputy Chief Vega hit on like the chop shops, like the one that we had in Berlin. Because of that federal partnership outside of our jurisdiction, they were able to secure that and work with us to make that happen. So.
Yes.
And finally, do you expect to, BCSO is doing a similar thing with the federal partnership to do an operation. Are you guys expecting to do any sort of operations on a federal level to reduce the chop stops or anything else like that? Or?
We are, I mean, if I understand, BCSO is involved in triple beam. It basically took place of the central operation with emphasis. Yes, we've been involved with operations on central. We are currently, our data is released when the DA's office releases information. We've been involved with it. My only concern and my only issue that I want to make sure that we're careful with is, I've seen a decrease in prosecution on the federal level for our crimes, and I just hope that this focus on immigration isn't taking time from the limited prosecutors that they do have at the federal level and federal agents. Because remember, somebody has to write that warrant for immigration. Somebody has to prosecute that case. I just hope that that priority is not slowing down our priority of making sure people armed with guns stay in jail and get federally charged.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.